Impossible has a skill set. I heard that quote the other day and I loved it, but also too, I was like, rap. Because immediately when I hear impossible has a skill set, I'm held accountable, right? A lot of times we look at performers, people who are just killing it in certain industries, and we think, wow, it must be so nice to be that lucky. And here's the deal, man. Most of them have just worked their asses off to get to where they are at. And there's definitely something to be said for a predisposition, natural talent, of course, for sure, privilege, people having more resources than other people. Absolutely. All I'm saying is we discount ourselves. I know I do way too quick because I think something is just handed over and given to people and not acknowledging that impossible has a skill set. And skill sets are something that we can learn, develop, and grow. I got to connect with Atlanta-based comedian Katherine Blanford, who went from full-time nanny to recently full-time comedian, recently making her television debut on the Jimmy Fallon show. And let me tell you, this woman is so freaking funny, so cool, and she works her little cute booty off. If you're an inspiring professional creative, or maybe you just love hearing the backstory of people who are on stage, I know you'll love this conversation with the incredible Katherine Blanford. Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been really excited to get to talk to you. I had 2 different friends in the same week send me your stuff, and like, she is so cool. She lives out in Atlanta. You definitely need to talk to her, and I'm so glad that they put you on my radar because now I'm a fan. I've been listening to your show and watching your badass clips on the internet.
Thank you.
And so it's just an honor to have you. I got a bunch of questions for you. Being a comedian, man, like, was that something you were always really serious about, or was there a moment where you're like, freak, I'm just going to do this with my life?
It's funny. I didn't like, I guess it kind of, it kind of snowballed into getting more and more serious as I kept going into it. I didn't grow up wanting to be a stand-up comic at all. I thought I was going to be a lawyer and then a broadcast journalist. And then, then you go to college and you're like, what major do I really want? And I did this random major just to get in-state tuition at a out-of-state school, very weird program. Did not grow up really obsessed with stand-up comedy at all. Like, I was very surface level. When I started, if you asked me who my favorite stand-ups were, it was like Dane Cook and Aziz Ansari. Like, nobody, like, my favorite comics now I'd never heard of when I started. Just the very, the mainstream comics I liked back then. And I was in college. I did this like competition, it was a fraternity kind of talent show. Every sorority had an intern, a girl. I didn't really have a talent. So I did a monologue. Like, I was Chelsea Handler for her show, Chelsea Lately, and like roasted all the guys, and I won. And when I was younger, I always like thought I wanted to be an actress, right? Every little girl did. And I think I was like, I got my actual first taste of that, like performing. And I was like, okay, that was really cool. So it was stayed in the back of my head for a long time. And so after I graduated college, I just took a class just as a bucket list thing. Again, not ever planning on continuing to do it. And then, I did a couple open mics just after that, just to continue that I just knew it was something I liked doing and I wanted to get better at it, but it wasn't something I thought was going to turn into my future. But I'd quit a job that was kind of, it was a very taxing job. It was events. I was doing, nights and weekends. And I like, in the meantime, I became a nanny just to figure out what my next career move was going to be. And then just kept doing stand up, like kept going to open mics. And I just kind of had caught that bug, when you're like, oh, I'm obsessed with something. I don't know where it's going to go. I just want to keep getting better and better at it. And I was horrible. I was so bad for a year. I mean, nobody would have expected, if you saw me when I started out and then woke up 7 years later and you heard where I am now, you'd be like, that girl who I just saw, there's no way
That's
she
so
did set on TV.
Katherine. I love hearing that because it just gives all of us some hope if we feel like we suck at something.
I mean, and I still suck a lot. Trust me. I did an open mic last night with new stuff. I was like, whoo. So yeah, I just kept going deeper and deeper into it, and was like, well, maybe I want to start my own show, and started producing my own shows in the city. And then before I knew it, I was just so deep into it. I was like, well, I don't ever want to stop. This is the only thing that really, this is my passion, right? My fuel. And, the further and further you get into it, the more opportunities you get out of it. And so now, just 3 months ago, I quit nannying. I was nannying for 8 years straight and became a full-time
family?
comic. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations on that. That's
Thank you.
incredible. So just this morning, moseyed on into my podcast episode because this was such a good quote. I wrote it on my whiteboard over here. It was a magician. I was listening to an interview from a magician, which is so cool. But he said that impossible has a skill set. And I loved that because he said a lot of times we discount really talented people. We're like, oh, that's cool. Katherine was just born funny and she just has that vibe and all that stuff about her. That's impossible. What I love about that is it tells skill set to me, says there's something there to learn. And I was wondering, I wrote here, what skill set did you have to hone in order to get, to be able to quit your nanny job? Right.
Yeah.
And be able to go on tour and do some of this badass stuff that you're doing. What was that one kind of switch for you that you really had to hone to get good?
Is this a skill set, or I don't know exactly what you would say. I would say resilience, only because I still go through it now where like I'm very much especially even how I write my material, it's either a story or an idea, and I don't write it like very, here's my setup punchline, here's my setup punchline. I have to figure it out a lot of times on stage and really explore the idea and the bit, which to me is pretty painful because it's not polished for a long time. And I have to, like, for me to be satisfied with the bit, I have to try a million different angles with it and try a million different ideas. And the final bit is about 20%, maybe even less, of everything I tried, which means 80% of it failed and 80% of it bombed. And I don't feel satisfied until I've, really explored it, which means that I go through a lot of painful trial and error to get something really right. And it's still my process now. I don't know why I put myself through it, but, I guess so and this was my whole time, coming up as a comic and learning, I just had to force myself to put stuff out there knowing it was going to fail most of the time, and just having that trust in the back of your head to keep going and that you have it, and it'll eventually mold itself into, a great bit or great material, and not getting, not wanting to quit because it fails the first 20 times tough. You do it.
That's so tough.
Yeah.
Too, and not to make this about, being just specifically being a woman, and make it about that. But there is something to say too, sometimes being the only woman in a room, like trying out different materials. I tried stand up once, Katherine. You talk about
good.
Horrible. No, I'm going to do it again later this month. I'm really excited about it. I don't know why in the world, but I'm doing it again. But literally I was it was an insane amount of people who went before me, and they're all like vagina and meth, and just like over and over again. And I guess maybe it was just me, but just kind of putting a little bit of extra pressure on myself. Like, man, I really need to show up here because I felt so uncomfortable. And I'm sure it's been your experience too. Any industry you're in, usually women are the minority in there, but was there any doubt or insecurity there being a woman comic specifically?
Oh yeah. I mean, still to this day, I mean, it's people, I mean, even you put stuff on the internet, the first 5 comments are just, especially YouTube, just people, men going, women aren't funny. I don't even know if they watch the clip. They just see a woman up there with a microphone, and they can't wait to make you understand that they don't like you because you're a woman. And it is this kind of, you feel like the minute you walk on stage, there's already a barrier you have to get over before, that people have already discounted you, because they're like, you can almost see them rolling their eyes like, here comes the woman. They have to put the woman on. We have to put up with this. But it does feel so much better too once you prove when you get on there and you crush or whatever, and then they're like, oh, okay, she's better than half the dudes we saw tonight. It's I think you have to just know that it's happening, and know that the minute that you overcome it, it just feels that much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I've been really just drawn to, like the arts. I've been spending years like in the whole personal development space, which is great, but I'm also so sick of it and kind of getting bored. But when I got into like studying what you guys do, I'm like, wow, there's so much like of a steadiness you got to get to internally to be like, really, like you said earlier, throw things away and not be attached to it, not be like, I'm a failure, forget it all. And also just like, I guess lean into what makes you quirky and different and be really comfortable with that. Is confidence your forte, or is that something that you have to work on?
I think, it's yes and no. When I get up there, it's just, you have to know that there's nobody else up here with you. So you have to own that moment and confidence. And I think a lot of times it's forced, maybe a fake confidence that you're just, you're almost lying to yourself and just going, you have to have confidence. You might feel horrible right now. You might feel like you're the worst comic on this lineup right now, but this is your moment, and you have no other choice but to be confident right now. So I think it's a I don't know if forced is the word, but it's, if I was being really honest with myself and I was alone in my bedroom, I'd be like, no, I'm terrible. I feel I don't belong here, but it's just going, it's like kind of just pushing yourself off the cliff and going, you have no choice. So fake it.
I hear that. I mentioned at the beginning before we hit record, a lot of the folks listening to this show are really interested in kind of moving their thing, whether they're a comedian or a writer or photographer or whatever, into more of a serious gig and really taking the chance and jumping off the cliff, essentially. The business side to what you do, I'm sure you've learned a lot about that. So one side, you're getting better at your craft, and the other side, you're learning the business side to comedy and creating a brand and all that. Specifically, like just this past year, has there been just some main key lessons that you've learned about the business side to comedy?
Yeah. I mean, God, this has been the past 3 months is really learning. One is that I think the people that do, appreciating the actual fans and letting them know that you are appreciative of them is a huge thing in building yourself up. Like if somebody reaches out to you, like I'm always like responding to DMs and I'm so happy after a show I just hang around no matter what, because the only way I survive is if people come to my shows. And so I want to look people in the eyes who do buy a ticket, and some people drive an hour to come to a show, and I'm never going to take that for granted. And just letting those people know how appreciative you are makes a huge difference. And also, I think starting out and growing, I think there's a mindfulness of knowing what sells and being conscious enough to make sure you create a chunk of your material. This might be just for stand-up, but I don't know what else, but that sells. Meaning, like, I know, I'm working on this new hour. I've done a TV spot now. I learned what works and what doesn't work on TV. I now, as I'm writing, I'm going, okay, here's something that's a little more risque or dirty or dark. It could be family stuff that might be a little dark. But I am still conscious enough to remember to continue to writing stuff that is also something that if, next month if I get an offer for a TV gig, I can still pull from this 5 minutes or this 10 minutes that is, family friendly. You can watch it in the middle of Idaho, clean kind of material. It's being true to your art and writing, what you want to say and what's real to you, but also being conscious that still have that material that is available for, like another talk show or somebody or late night show reaches out, I have that clean material that is available to go. That might not necessarily be my favorite stuff to write.
Yeah.
But it's marketable, and it's going to help me to, keep getting my brand out, my name out there, and build and build and build. I guess, am I making sense what I'm saying?
No, it makes total sense. And it is applicable to so many different industries.
Yeah.
I think that's where I get precious about things, and I've really got to work on is, you get told like follow your passion and just go after what makes you feel good. And then when you really learn marketing and figuring out how to move something forward, it's like, cool. And you need to make sure to what you just said, that it's something that sells and that people actually want. So I guess my follow up to that would be, for comedy specifically, how do you keep, I guess, the temperature of that? Or are you just watching a lot of other comedians, or how do you kind of gauge what you need to be writing right now?
I think you just, like, I have like maybe 4 or 5 bits that are in the factory right now that I'm working. This one I'm like, okay, this one's a little darker one, or this one's a little meaner, right? I know that I can go as far as I want on that one, because that will stay in my live act for my shows, right? Then there's this one I have that's a story about my family that is already kind of clean. I will, as I'm writing it, make sure it stays clean, so that I'm like, that will be in my waiting period for something, if I need to do on TV that's clean. I could, there's jokes as you work them, you can realize, oh, you can take it a dark way or not. Just making sure that the ones that are the marketable ones, the ABC family ones, you keep them and you develop them in the mindset that you're going to sell that to ABC Family, and then you keep the HBO Max ones.
I gotcha.
Back there. So it's, I think it's just like being, I think they're both fun to create, but making sure the ABC Family ones stay ABC Family, stay marketable.
Yeah.
You're not throwing in
that.
a dirty joke at the end of those.
Totally. I'm going to stop being selfish in a minute and get to these listener questions, but I'm going to ask one more selfish question. You're performing so much and showing up to a mic constantly. I guess like coming up with new ideas and being able to kind of keep that flow of inspiration going, is that just a practice of continually writing? I guess sometimes I feel so boring, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That it's just kind of like, how the hell, I don't have that many points of view, I don't have that many truths to be able to really bring to the table, but I know I'm probably just not asking myself the right questions. So how do you kind of mine all those ideas?
Yeah, and I'm telling you, you do, by the way. You have a whole life and experience. Yeah. But so for me, I get in that rut all the time, and I do a couple different things, but it is just discipline. And, I try and write. If not, I do different ways of writing, but especially if I'm in that rut of being like, what, I don't really say. It's a lot of journaling. I do morning pages a lot. It's just the 3 straight pages. Yeah,
Let's go.
Just throwing it out there on the paper, just kind of brain dumping all that negative thoughts and the little tasks you have throughout the day, just dumping them on the paper, and then you're ready to like dig deeper into your mind. And then a lot of like, I'll set a timer. I'm like, okay, I want to work on this one bit. I want to develop these new jokes. I'll set a timer for 20 minutes, and I can't stop for 20 minutes. And I'll make a list of 10. I'll have to write 10 jokes for that, or 10 punchlines. And it's like, it doesn't matter if they're dumb. You have to fill 10 spaces. And it's really funny what will happen. The first 5 are the very surface level, very easy. Might not even be funny. It's just the first thing you think of when you're answering that. And then, okay, you get those out. Then the next 5 get a little bit more creative. And you might find the answer right in the next 5 because you've gotten the easier ones out of the way. So, and maybe I don't get anywhere in the 20 minutes, but you'll find yourself... I've always surprised myself in being like, oh, I just took that bit to a new level that, I had no expectation of before. But it's like, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, and you do you got to listen to your own bit and type it out and type out what works and what wasn't working. And it's just all these kind of little techniques that if you're zoomed out and you're looking at it, you're going, I got nothing more in the tank for that. But when you just sit there and like really focus on it and force yourself to write stuff, even if you don't think it's coming to you, is when the little miracle happens.
It's so good. I mean, what I hear you saying with that is it's like taking the time to get out of your head and like actually dig super deep inside of you. And I don't think we just take the time to actually do that. Like you said, there's so much more in there. We're just, I know me, rushy, rush, right?
Yeah.
Produce. All right. So Dane Scott Sullivan, I'm here with you now. He wanted to know what skill from being a PWNS, and for those who are wondering, that's a pediatric waste management specialist, also known as a nanny. A nanny, he wants to know what skill from being a nanny did you never think you would use again that has played a role in your comedic career?
Oh, it's definitely paying attention to what's happening in your presence right now, being very present, and because that turns into material that you're sitting here going back like, let me think about my childhood, let me think about this, this opinion I have on this past conversation, and you're not paying attention to what's happening right now, and you've got 3 wacko kids, asking you questions and saying insane stuff, and you've got so much material being thrown at your face right in the moment. But if you're not present, you're not going to catch it, it's about letting. This is going to turn real hippy dippy, but
I'm
like
a woo
letting,
girl, so you go.
okay.
It's
This is,
all
I
good.
tell myself, I'm like, sometimes I'm sitting here going, I need material. And I'm in my head going, ooh, I can't think of this. And it's almost like the universe is throwing stuff at me. Like, here you go.
Yes.
Here, this is happening right now. Turn this into something. Here you go. And sometimes I'm so in the back of my head, I'm not even paying attention.
Yep.
And I'm like begging the universe for stuff. And it's literally giving me gift baskets every day. And I'm too selfish or close. I have my blinders on, but it was very much like that. I had so much material as a nanny, just, the kids would say something, or they would say something and it would spark something else in my memory, something about my own childhood or something. But yeah, so just being present.
See, that's what I'm talking about with this. All circles back around like personal development. I'm not saying everybody who's in the entertainment industry is like personally developed or anything, but there's so much of that aspect and like some spirituality. Because a lot of times, when I started getting into, it was about 3 years ago, I started studying all this stuff and acting and all that. I keep telling people, I'm like, there's so much of what we learn in these freaking books in this presence, letting go of like your identity and what you think you are, getting okay with rejection. I mean, like, anyway, I'm going on a church service here, but Lourdes Grant, back to you. How do you use life lessons in a comedy script when you're actually struggling or going through pain in your very moment? So delivering your content in a funny manner, showing up, your presence when sometimes life just freaking sucked that day.
How do I, let me try to understand the question. So how do I perform comedy when the day is rough? You think that's what they're saying? I mean, in my head, I mean, it's a couple of things. Comedy isn't always that moment, that chance for me to get to perform and do what I want to do when the rest of the world is kind of, out of your control and it's going to shit. Yeah. But I also think, even when you're so tired and you're beaten down, a lot of the times you kind of bring that on stage and you can be pretty honest with it. And
really?
I think it's very much a thing that people in the audience connect to. I think you learn skills and how to kind of sell it in a comedic way that you're not bringing everybody down, sure, but in a way of being, because everybody else is living their life too. They understand what's happening. And so being able to maybe introduce a bit you're bringing up, and you're like, it's funny I'm talking about this now because today ... happened, or something else where you can kind of get, it's almost like you're writing a comedic diary on stage, where you're almost laughing about all the shitstorm that you're in right now. You can kind of bring that to the stage, and it's therapeutic for you because you're finding the when it, like, everything's going wrong, and then you have that hysterical laughter when you're sitting in the middle of a hurricane and you're cracking up. It's like you kind of bring that to the stage, and it gives you a chance to just make light of it. But yeah, I think the greatest gift of all when shit is going to hell is being able to get on stage and still owning that moment on stage and being like, at least I got this. I can crush right here.
Totally. Good. Shay, I think you know Shay. She was on your Cheaties podcast. Shay D.
Yes! Oh, Shay!
Yeah, she's so cool. She's so cool. I love this question. She asked, what's been different, or what was different performing on Jimmy Fallon than any old comedy club? What was different about that?
A million
Besides
things.
nerves.
Shay? Yeah. Oh, yeah. The nerves were there, but I also, that set I had practiced. You have to get every word approved from their lawyers, really? And they before that they're slicing and dicing it and being like, can't say this, can't say this. Yeah. And so you're reworking stuff to get it approved. And then, I did that 5-minute set probably 3-4 times a night the week before, every night, just to get it into muscle memory, knowing that my nerves are going to be pinging, just zooming out of me, and just wanting to have that set, as memorized, like almost muscle memory. So it didn't matter how many nerves I had. But yeah, and then also like, you can't do crowd work. There's nothing, it just has to be what it is. So it's fun, but it's almost like any old comedy shows. They're two totally. I'm not that I'm so appreciative of Fallon, but doing any old comedy show is really a time when you actually can be really present and do a bit, but divert from your bit and talk about something that happened today, or interact with the crowd.
It's yours.
Yeah. Oh, that's your moment. That's your time. But yeah, Fallon is just, here are the agreed upon words, and this is what you will do. Fit it into the time, So it's just two different animals, and performing it on TV is amazing. I'll take any opportunity to do it. But like, the thing that you fall in love with for stand-up comedy, those moments happen at a live show on stage, in front of real people. Totally.
And she had a quick follow up to that. What's changed for you since you quote made it?
Oh, made it. Sure, Shay. I have one Target bra still. So, but yeah, I get to now, having a TV credit helps a lot with selling yourself to clubs. And now I'm just on a different kind of grind, trying to prove myself in these clubs. So I'm doing one-nighters, I'm doing, usually a headliner will get a weekend, right? Thursday through Sunday, or, some kind of mix of that, Thursday through Saturday or Friday, Saturday, whatever. But I'm trying to prove myself. So I'm going in on the Tuesdays and Wednesdays, flying to one city every day, being in an airport every morning, just going into these clubs, showing them I've got a strong hour and I can put the butts in the seats. So it's still, making it just means there's another level of expectations and another level of grind. And so now it's that, just trying to prove myself that, trying to get these clubs to give me a whole weekend, and, working on new material to hopefully do another TV show soon.
I love that. Well, you've been super generous with your time. I have a final question I ask all the guests, but before then, if somebody wants to stalk you online, where would you guide them to?
Please come Instagram. It's Katherine Blanford. I think YouTube and TikTok, it's Katherine Blanford, and then Facebook is Katherine Blanford Comedy. With a BLAN.
Your YouTube kills, dude. Like those shorts and stuff. My goodness.
I know. Some of them really surprise me. The ones that take off, and the ones that don't, I'm like, man, I really like that one. But it's, it's just whatever the beast likes that day, the algorithm beast.
Yeah. Well, all that will be linked in the show notes, along with the link to all her upcoming shows, which is on her website. Last question. There's this quote behind me. It's from an artist. His name's James Victori. And he says that the things that made you weird as a kid, I love that word, make you great today. So, looking back at little Katherine, was there something odd, strange, maybe even weird about you back then that makes you great today?
Oh, yeah, it's all my material. I
couldn't wait to ask you this.
Thank God. I was such a weird kid. I have this whole joke I'm working on now about how I don't even know if I want to say it on here, but we went to New York and I came back and I wanted to play New York, which meant like we would try and sell our mom's old purses on the side of the sidewalk at the cul-de-sac and stuff, like very weird. I had a not a mainstream, imagination. And did I always kind of feel like the weird, I looked normal. I looked like kind of the cheerleader-esque type, but I had these little wacko demons in me. And now it's fun because I just get to explore that little kid and talk about it on stage. And then really, I think a lot of people connect with it. And I'm very grateful for who I was and who I am now.
Preach.
Make sure you connect with Katherine. All of her links are right down below. And please, if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also leave me a comment. I want to talk to you.